Hi, my name is Vo. I'm a small artist based in the Bay Area. I create clay goods and also draw, and I do lots of events. So my YouTube channel is all about the things I'm working on. Today's video is about my studio, kind of, sort of. I guess this is my studio. I don't know. I call it my office, but then when people come over, they're like, oh, this is not an office. This is just another room. I guess it's my studio. I opened up my commissions recently for clay charms and also illustrations. I started working on a few of the clay charms I want to show you guys and also some restock of my smaller ones. And I have a certain goal in mind today. This is my big chunky boy. It is Pochaco, and this person requested it to be as big as it could possibly be. So I need to paint all of their faces. I kind of want to sculpt all of them first, and then I will paint them all at the same time. There's some dents from the tray, but you're not going to really notice it once I glaze him because the glaze will kind of like add a layer on top. This is like from the baking tray because I had to sit him up or else his ear would fall over. For the body, I put like a small aluminum foil ball and then I wrapped the clay around it, and then the ears I used some extra jewelry wires to make sure that they would stay attached. To reinforce the hardware here, I used super glue. So I left a hole in the top of his head and then I baked this, let it cool overnight, and then the next day I put super glue on both the eyelet and the hole, and then I kind of screwed it in. It looks pretty sturdy in there, but the problem with this is pretty heavy. So I would probably recommend the person who purchased this to make sure that they're careful. Not that I think it will break, but it is really heavy and it's gonna add a lot of weight to whatever you're putting it on. Onto the next two little guys that are on my commission list. This one is like a VTuber model, but it's supposed to be like a water droplet, I believe. And then I'm gonna add some gradients on like the bottom of a darker blue and then a little bit on the leaf as well. This one is Pajama Party Usagi. He is quite large and in charge. He's about 3 inches in height. I really like how I built it. I think it's pretty sturdy and my skills are improving a lot. I think the Craft Smart clay is just a little too soft because you can still see all of the texture, and I know I should be doing things to prevent, you know, like the clay getting too hot, too soft. My hands are hot, the environment is warm right now because it's summertime, so sometimes it just can't be helped. I think Sculpey Primo is a little bit stiffer or harder to work with, but I don't want to like neglect all the clay I already have. So we're just trying our best. And I don't want to pick up all of them, but I made about 13 small charm pieces last night. I made a lot of kuchipachis and I made some seals with their butts. This time I just made them white with the blue mouth again because I think these ones are just like easier to tell that it's a seal. When I use different clay colors for the seal, sometimes people are like, oh, what is that? I'm confused. Is it like a character? Is it a Digimon? Is it a Pokemon? I'm like, no, you guys, it's a seal. And then I made one glorp cat, which I think you can see when I say like the clay is very, very soft. Yesterday I had a drawing session with my friend Naomi at our favorite local cafe, and I also have consignment with them, so a lot of my clay charms are sold out. There's only one left and I restocked last week. I need to pump out more charms, but it was really good. We had a drawing session for about 5 hours, which is much needed because we both have lots of events coming up. My goal is to finish Kirby's. I don't like going from green to the pink because like the clay color, they mix and it's hot and like whatever, you know, the clay is already soft. So if I'm like trying to get the colors off of my hand, it's gonna be super difficult. But today I decided, okay, I'm gonna just split them up and I'm going to do Kirby today. I'm gonna go ahead and start painting these because now that they are all sculpted, I have to paint, and then the hardest part is glazing. Glazing is like one of my biggest enemies. But yeah, I'll bring you a little bit closer so you can see my things in the little Tupperware. Yeah, I made 5 seals. They kind of vary in size, so this one is like smaller than the one I showed you originally, and he's kind of plumper too. Like, look at him. Wow, real plump. And then I made a lot of kuchipachis. I made one, or actually maybe I made 2. I made one with full body, and then I made a bunch that's just the heads. I think you guys really find this thing charming because I always sell out of this one. Here is a better look at the glorp cat. I haven't made this in a while because it's a little bit difficult to make. I have to make sure that the eye pin is secure. It's really hard to get the clay with the leftover wires here too because the clay is so soft. And then these are the commission ones that I just showed you. So you see how big this thing is? I also added some super glue to the ears just to make sure that they're secure. And the one thing is the tail on the duck cracked a little. But yeah, this thing is humongous. It was so difficult to make. I had to cover my mistakes with the shirt with this little coil here because every time I would touch the clay, the shirt would not be straight. So I had to try my best to cover up my mistakes. I think everything always looks better once it has resin on it. All the imperfections I won't care about once it's glazed. Another really cool thing I've been working on is testing glow-in-the-dark vinyl paper with my inkjet printer and then using a matte lamination on top. So me and my friend Eunice are going to be working on a stamp rally together. It's going to be at Holiday Fair, sjmade, in November. And it is a Smiski stamp rally. It is so cute. Mine is this one. It's like a little Smiski with the cat. And they're both sleeping. And then Eunice's design is this beautiful clover in a field of clovers, and it says lucky. But yeah, these stickers are glow in the dark, and it was a lot of work to do, but I'm glad we got through it. We have a little bit over 30 prizes. Eunice's was a little bit easier to cut than my design because mine has a die cut, and I mean hers is die cut too, but it's rectangular. So yeah, we have some prizes here for people who finish the stamp rally. But I'm also in a stamp rally for a summer fair with my friend Bea, which is coming really close. It's about to be like a week from the event, so I need to make sure I make my stickers, which is what I want to work on today. I'm testing another new sticker paper and we'll see if I like it. My problem with creating really durable stickers is that my Cricut blade gets worn down so fast. I bought a new blade. It was $5, which is not bad at all, but I already bought another blade with the housing mechanism, or like the housing kit, like a month ago. So having to already replace the blade is kind of fast, but I mean, it can't be helped, you know? I think it's from the matte lamination, from being so thick, and the matte lamination has a little bit of texture, so it was just wearing down at the blade. Anyways, enough yapping for now. I'm gonna go ahead and show you stickers and also working on the Kirby clay charms. When I'm working on stuff like this, I like to also listen to other people talk in the background. So like I'll usually play videos of people playing video games or have other art vlogs, artist recaps, or people drawing in the background. So I'm not sure if everyone would prefer for these parts of the videos to be quiet, but I'm just going to talk over my process and kind of what's going on. In this clip, I'm working on the stamp rally stickers for the Rilakkuma Bakery stamp rally I'm having with Bea for summer fair, which is really soon. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up the backside of the lamination. I'm using a Sharpie to mark the areas where I'm going to cut the lamination sheet so that it is perfectly affixed to where the stickers are, and then my Cricut won't be confused that the sensor marks are covered. I could use the lines provided on the actual backside of the lamination sheet, but I am a lazy person and I just want to know where I need to put things quickly, so this is how I do it. You know, I'm not sure if it's the most efficient, but it works for me, and this paper slicer is a lifesaver. I use it all the time. Once I get the sheet perfectly cut out to fit the sticker sheet, I go ahead and peel the bottom just a little bit, and then I will fold it and try to make it as flush as possible, just to attempt to get it even and not cover the sensor marks. Here, what I'm doing is very closely looking and seeing how even the lamination sheet is before I make contact with the sticker paper. And then I use this squeegee, or I don't know what this is called, but I use this to make sure there's no air bubbles and squeeze everything out, and I just love it. It's so satisfying. This is my favorite part. I think the easiest part of this process to get air bubbles in your stickers is at the bottom, right when you're getting started. So I really recommend pushing the air bubbles away from the design and trying not to swipe it up or swipe it into the design, because your Cricut will cut around it or it can cut right next to it, so you can still squeeze that air bubble out. When you're using a Cricut, this is what it looks like after it reads the center marks and it starts cutting the sheet. The only times I've had problems with my Cricut is when the blade gets really dull and then I have to replace the blade, which is annoying because it's just a little bit of extra money, but it's really worth it. I've never had any other issues. Another thing is the Cricut recently had an update that I think is really useful, and it improved the calibration. So every time it updates, it'll force you to do a calibration test. This test just ensures that the Cricut is cutting properly and not missing any marks or cutting over your design. I've only ever tried one other sticker cutting machine, or I'm not sure what this is called exactly, but a cutting machine, and it was very loud. My Cricut is pretty quiet. I mean, it's not super quiet, but it is quiet enough to not bother me. The other one was really loud. This is how my stickers turned out. My light grip sheet is a little dirty and I need to wash it, but I'm just lazy. But I think they turned out really good. At this point, my blade was really dull because I had cut so many stickers with the glow-in-the-dark paper, and the lamination sheet is just kind of sanding away at the blade. If you see signs like this, just replace the blade. It's not worth fighting with your Cricut. Now I'm moving on to making the Kirby clay charms. I was actually still making stuff on my Cricut while I was making charms, so I would just go back and forth between the desk and then my other table where the Cricut is. If you're interested in anything polymer clay or ceramics related, you can always drop a comment down below and I will go ahead and answer any questions you may have. You may be thinking, Bo, this is a really hot pink clay for a hot pink Kirby, and I'm here sitting thinking, wow, these are really hot pink, but whatever, YOLO, I'm still gonna make them. There is a lot of clay colors I don't use, and this hot pink is one of the ones that I don't use. So I thought, let's go make something different today. And I don't really know if I love this very much. When you're working with polymer clay and you put it in the oven, after it bakes, it is pretty true to color, like very close, but this just came out like a little bit darker, and I didn't know how to feel about that. They're not super ugly or anything, I just think they don't really look like modern day Kirby. I still think they're cute, but this is definitely a Barbie pink. When I make my charms, sometimes I'll have a little food scale to weigh the clay and make sure that they're all accurate, but when you're sculpting this small, it's a little bit hard to get it exact. I'll usually bring out the food scale now when I'm working with ceramics or if I'm working on mini vases, because it's gonna read a little bit more since there's more clay. I've been making clay Kirby's for 3 years now, but I started refining the style or how I want them to generally look as of mid last year. Sometimes I'll change things like the color or their facial expression, like today, because I want everyone to have a different Kirby. But after this session, I probably won't make hot pink Kirby ever again. This is a little cursed in my opinion. I'll slow the speed back down, but it took me about 30 to 40 minutes to make all 4 of these Kirby's and the tiny one. After a polymer clay sculpting session, I clean up in a certain way to try my best to preserve the clay for my next session and also clean my tools. Polymer clay is made up of plasticizers and oils, so the only way to really clean it up is with rubbing alcohol. When storing it again, I try to keep all of the wrappers that they come in, and I'll tape it to try and close it up as best as possible, but sometimes I throw it away on accident, stuff happens. If stored improperly, the plasticizers in the clay can actually melt hard plastics and then they won't be very usable anymore. And even if you store it in a paper or cardboard box, the oils can seep into the box. So here you can see me wiping everything down. I'm using a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol and I'm trying to get all of the pigment off. Even though you can't see the pigment, it is still there on a very thin layer. I think if we're talking about best practices, you should clean your tools and your work area every single time you're finished. But sometimes, you're tired, I'm tired, we just walk away. A lot of times people will ask me why I have Q-tips at my station, and it's because I will use rubbing alcohol and Q-tips to clean off all of the clay pieces from any dust or lint that came off of my fingers or my clothes. We're gonna shift back over to stickers and I'm gonna show you how I correct my sensor marks. So let's say you're working very hard, you drew this very beautiful design and you're trying to cut stickers out and you laminate over the sheet, but your lamination went over these sensor marks even just a little bit. What you'll need to do is go ahead and take an old project that did work and cut out one of the sensor marks and tape it over as close as possible to the one on the sheet. You can even put your phone flashlight underneath so that you can line it up better, but I use my phone to record so I couldn't do that. Once you do this, your Cricut will successfully cut your project, but this happens because when the Cricut is sensing the marks, it uses a tiny flashlight to see them better, and any material that will refract the light will confuse the sensor. Something that can happen when you're using your Cricut is that your grip is not strong enough on the mat or your blade is really dull, so it will pick up the sheet, and that's what happened to me, so I'm manually cutting out this sticker trying to salvage it. I have all of my Stamp Rally stickers here. There's about like 35. So there's plenty, a little bit extra for after the rally if I have any extra. but I think it came out really cute. Like, you can see all the details. I love the matte texture, and because of the matte texture, you really see like the true colors, I feel. Retraction from the light that you would usually see with glossy vinyl stickers. But yeah, I think it's so cute. The paper I'm using is labeled as weatherproof, but in my opinion, I think all stickers that are printed with an inkjet printer are like kind of hard to make waterproof. I think like usually if you have a laser printer, like those industrial ones, those will definitely be waterproof, but I don't know. I think it definitely helps with the lamination on top. A lot of people will spray like the UV resistant spray on top, and then they'll let all their pages dry and then laminate, which I think is a really good step to take. But for me, if I do that, my neighbor is gonna see me doing it, and I don't want to have to talk about what I'm doing or whatever. So I just put the lamination on top, which makes it a little bit more waterproof. This is one of the ones I had to cut by hand because my Cricut made a mistake. I ended up printing 5 sheets instead of 4 sheets because one sheet just completely didn't work out. So since this one is one that is fully die cut and it's kind of thinner on the edges, I'm gonna see quality check. So seeing how it would be like if I was a customer purchasing and then I won this in the stamp rally. Probably should have done the quality check before I printed them all, but I usually have a good time with my stickers. Okay, here we go. So yeah, it came off pretty easily. It was a little bit hard, I think, because, you know, the scissor blade is not as clean as a Cricut blade. But yeah, it's pretty nice. Very clean. So now I don't know where I'm gonna put this. Maybe I'll put it in my sticker book. Here's my sticker book. It is quite thick with sticker sheets that I haven't touched. And I'm almost finished with all the pages. So I'm just gonna put that right there. Yep. So I'm pretty much done with most of my prep. I think right now I just need to paint the clay pieces, but I kind of want to take a break right now. I was nonstop for like 3 hours. I think if I'm not recording, I can push out like 10 clay charms, 12 clay charms in an hour. But when I'm recording, I'm so conscious. I keep checking the camera and everything to make sure it's like all good and stuff. So it is a lot harder. But the Kirby charms are done baking in the oven. I need to let them cool, and I will work on painting later in the evening. Okay, it's the same day, but I just changed my shirt. I just realized that I changed my shirt too. But I made soup with tofu beef and like wonton with vermicelli noodle. It was really good. I had seconds because it was so good and I was really hungry. But I ate, I took a break, and I didn't do anything else, and now I'm really sleepy because I had soup. I stay awake. I don't want to take a nap. I'm trying so hard not to take a nap. I have to go pack up some Garfield charms for consignment restock, update a spreadsheet to send over to them, and then I need to prepare the package to mail out to them. But yeah, so I think that's what I'm gonna do, and then if I have the energy, I'm gonna paint. But I'm really, really tired now, and I'm trying so hard not to drink caffeine, but it's so hard. Oh my god. But yeah, that's pretty much it. While I start packing up the consignment, I'm gonna also print more stickers to prepare for upcoming events, because I don't like doing things last minute. You know, it's not good for your health at all. So yeah, let's go. If you're an artist looking to make extra money outside of your online store or social media, or from artist alleys and makers markets, consignment is a great way to do so. If you're familiar with me, then you know my 2 places that I currently have consignment at are Modern Mouse Gifts in Alameda and Tampa Room in Fremont. Honestly, getting into consignment is pretty rough because sometimes there's no rotation, and the current state of the economy, it is very difficult for stores to keep up with all of these things. But I think putting yourself out there is a good way to champion for yourself. And also, the worst thing that you could hear is a no, but there will always be at least one person who will say yes. For this consignment package, I'm sending over Garfield and Love and Deep Space charms, as you can see, the Love and Deep Space charms are a little different. I used a double-sided bonding tape. I got the tape, as I get most things, from Daiso, and I really like how they came out. Okay, so I just finished packing everything. I'm restocking 5 sticker books to Modern Mouse, as well as these new Garf charms. I have a lot of new art and like new merch that I haven't told them about, so I was like, okay, you guys, what do you want to update, and like what do you want to get back to me? And then I have some of the lads too. I'm only doing 2 per love interest because I'm not sure how these will do at their store. I don't want to encumber them with more inventory, so we'll just see. They said that they want to give it a try because people have been asking about niche games, and I feel like Lebanese was pretty niche right now. I'm also restocking some pride stickers that were a little low, so lesbian and non-binary. I'm also restocking some stickers that were pretty low in stock, so the pride seals, and then I found 3 of these chow fruit stickers, which I haven't seen in a while, so I'm going to send that over to them as well. But yeah, gonna pack these all up and then send the shipping order. Moving on to painting charms now. My Kirby charms completely cooled after I packed that consignment order, and I think I went to go eat dinner. I can't really remember. This day was a blur because I am working. When all of the charms are cool and not hot at all to the touch, I'll start painting them. So I'll add little blushies. I will do red blushies for most of them, but then for my Kuchipachi and my Smiskis, I do a yellow and green blush. The most common question I get about polymer clay charms is how long does it take me, and I think sculpting is pretty short as long as I know what I'm making. If I don't know what I'm making, or I'm being experimental, or I'm studying styles, then it will take me a lot longer. I think a batch of familiar charms, like 13 to 14, could take me an hour to finish sculpting, but it's usually because the familiar ones are very simple. For instance, the Pochako took me 4 hours to finish because it took me a lot of studying and trying out new techniques. The Usagi Pajama Party took me an hour, hour and a half. The VTuber mascot took me 1 hour to finish, but then all of the small ones for my restock took me a little over 1 hour to make, about 15, 16 charms versus these 3. So when it comes to time, it really just depends on the size and how complicated or how familiar I am with it. I've actually had tremors in my hands for most of my life. I think it all started in high school. I've been told that it will get worse in the future as I get older, but I have to use my sculpting tools to also paint. I do try to use a paintbrush every now and then, but I'm not very steady at all, and I'll end up grabbing the silicone tip tool or a ballpoint tool. I think that using ballpoint tool is really good for any round areas that you're painting or precision, so it does help a lot when you're trying to paint down these 3D surfaces. Going back to talking about time, painting takes me a little bit longer because of having tremors in my hands and the adjustments I need to make. Typically, when I'm painting, I'll have to add multiple layers, so I have to wait for the layers to dry before I can add more to it. So this batch of clay took me about 2 hours to finish, and even then I had to go leave for dance class. I came back and kept painting. When painting on polymer clay or ceramic, it is pretty therapeutic because if you make a mistake, you can kind of fix it pretty easily. For polymer clay, you can scratch off any dry acrylic paint from the surface. However, once we start getting into top coat and glazing and using UV resin and lacquer, it is quite difficult and long. That's probably the longest part of this process. And it's also very dangerous for your health. For any art project or hobby or craft that you're doing, please Google health, safety, and concerns before using UV resin or polyurethane lacquer. For one of the commission pieces, I used oil pastel to create the gradient effect. Same thing I used for the blushies like you see on Usagi here, and it came out quite cute. Here are the finished pieces before top coat. I know this video is quite wordy and long, but thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you at an upcoming event or my next video. Kirby, what happened to you? Oh.